Okay, hi everyone again. In this one, I want to. Why isn't it focusing? Focus. All right, whatever. I want to talk about videos that I consider to be must watch from divine intervention. This is a critical part of your step two prep. Step one, I don't know if it's super important. Partly because it's pass fail, partly because I don't know if the content is the best for step one, but I think it's super important for step two, especially if you want to get a super high grade. I'm talking above to 60 to 65. So I have a list that I've made and I'm going to share it with you. So on his website, first of all, Divine Intervention is this guy who's been making these podcasts for 4 or 5 years now. I had a pleasure of taking one of his courses. He's really great. I recommend him. I'm gonna make this video kind of to pick out which episodes I think are the best ones to watch if you have a time crunch. To be honest, he has too many videos, so you have to pick which ones you're gonna watch. Uh, One thing that I'm gonna mention is that some really helpful human being has made a anki deck of the content in his lectures. So if you don't have time to go through all the podcasts, the other thing you can do is you can use that anki deck, go through it, see the cards that are unfamiliar to you, and add those to the anki card deck that you have that you use to review things you're not familiar with for in during your dedicated period. Okay, so that's what I did with a lot of these videos, and it worked really good, to be honest. So the first thing that I recommend watching you from Divine is all the shelf preparation videos. Those give you the most high yield information, the most basic information. If you don't know that information, you're making your life much harder than it needs to be. So there's four IM videos, episode 29, 30, 31, and 32. After you watch those, you can watch surgery, episode 24. Uh, and then you can watch OB-GYN, which is episode 22, and then watch Psych, episode 23. I mean, not in this particular order. This is the order that I have it here. Episode 17 and 21 is for peds. Neuro has 8 episodes. I didn't watch these. I used the Anki cards for these. I thought 8 episodes is way too long for neurology, but this is most of what he has for neurology. The other thing is for me, it didn't make sense because I already had a pretty decent background with neurology. You can also try doing the neurology CMS forms. There's 8 of them, I believe. There's a lot of them to kind of build your neurology background. Biostats. Well, no, let's actually go through the shelves. Yeah, I think this is all the shelves. There's also EM shelf. There's EM shelf. I also think that's decent to do. Um, that is episode, one moment, episodes 181, 182, 183. Okay. There is also family medicine. I didn't watch those either. Uh, Now, after you that comes place for the actual kind of like more high yield stuff that are not super basic, that are a little bit more niche. And for those, I would include episode 221, trauma, title trauma, episode 304, that's trauma 2. And then I would give all the biostats episodes, which includes episodes 123, that's Ethics 1, episodes 132, Social Sciences, 143, again, that's Biostats, 197, again, Biostats. This one is about bias specifically. 337 is about drug ads. Uh, 363 is compounding. 3 64 is effect modification, especially if you have, weakness in stats and stuff like that. The most important medical type of stuff podcasts were the following. So these podcasts are about like niche medical topics that show up on these exams that may not necessarily be heavily tested on your shelves, but do show up on the exams. So episode 26 talks about radiology, 36 talks about ophthalmology. The next one is super high risk. It's called the risk factors one. That's episode 37. I would talk about episode 97. That's risk factors two. There is a couple of clutch um, podcasts. So episode 100 is clutch micro. That's really high yield in my opinion. 102 is clutch cancer. 111 and 112 are clutch pharmacology 1 and 2. 137 is the next best step podcast, is very high yield. 161 is the auto antibodies podcast. I think it's important. 184, I thought was the most important episode probably in this whole list. It was the weird random stuff. Almost everything in that podcast was, not almost everything, but a good portion of that podcast was unfamiliar to my ears. 204 is titled USMLE and military. I think recently they added a lot of military stuff into their curriculum, so it's important to take a look at that one. Geriatrics 1 is 207. 231 is military 2. 242 is dermatology. I think that's really important too. 246 as well is dermatology. I think those are important. The episodes here that I mentioned, that topic like an actual like field, are really important because you're definitely gonna have some dermatology questions on your exam, um, and these podcasts will help you get them right. 250 is the vaccine podcast. 252 is post-exposure prophylaxis. It was really important in my opinion. 261 was dermatology again. 269 was bone stuff. So ortho, very high yield, especially bone tumors. Is that okay? Let's see what else I have. So I know that's a lot of podcasts. Remember that you don't have to watch all these. For a lot of them, you can go back to the Anki deck that you can find by Googling Divine Intervention Podcast Anki deck. There's a post from 2023 that lists a lot of these episodes that has basically an Anki deck for most of these episodes. Yeah, I think this is so. This is most of it. I'm gonna repeat some, potentially repeat some of them, but I think these are the most important ones in terms of the changes they made in November of 2020. So they added a bunch of stuff to the exam in November of 2020. That's why a lot of the old MBMEs aren't representative of the actual exam, and that's where a lot of people are like, oh, there was too much like QI on my exam. Like the truth to that is, the reason you feel like that is because a lot of your prep included the old MBMEs and they didn't have any QI, so you got kind of like confused when you saw that, oh shit, there's a lot of QI on this exam. So 228 is palliative care, super important. The topics keep coming up on the floors. This is just a very important topic on exams or in actual hospitals. 230 is quality and safety. 234 is transition of care errors. That's really important. 268, palliative care 2. 275 is diagnostic errors. That's really important. It's kind of like the biases and stuff like that, and all the early closure, stuff like that. Ethics is 123. Professionalism is 276. 277 was infection control. Two, 325 is extremely high yield screening guidelines. And 530 is cognitive errors and the USMLE. Yeah, that's all. That's all. Ooh, this one, pain control is 484. Pain control. You know all the morphine questions. That's where you get the answers to. You can also watch the free 120s that he has. Those are also a good use of your time, I would say. But realize that for most of these, you're not gonna like watch them end to end, because even if you do that, you're not gonna, it doesn't guarantee you the best learning. But the best thing you can do is to use that Anki deck to go through the Anki deck, see the things you don't understand well, or the things that you think you might get wrong, add them to your deck of cards that you frequently look at. Okay, so yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Subscribe, do all the click the like, whatever. I don't care actually if you do or not.